So the US Open kickstarts today, the third major of the year. Absolutely spoiled for choice between that and the World Cup matches over the next few days. Have a few minutes to spare in between lessons here at the teaching studio and figured I would jump in front of the camera here and make a little bit of a different type of video for the channel here today and give you my thoughts about what I think is potentially going to pan out over the course of the next 4 days. If you've been following the channel for a while and like the instruction that I've been putting out there and some of the technical breakdowns, if you're keen to put something in place to help improve your own golf game, stay until the end of the video and I've got an opportunity that you won't want to miss out on. So Shinnecock Hills is the host for this week's US Open, and if you're old enough to remember watching the US Open when it was hosted in Shinnecock back all the way in 1995, you'll remember that that was the venue in which Tiger Woods made his own US Open debut at that year. And if you do remember watching that tournament live, you'll recall that Tiger did pull out due to an injury. I think that segues appropriately into talking about something that you've always got to talk about when it comes to a major championship build-up, but particularly when they're the defending venue champion, which is Brooks Koepka. He won the US Open the last time it was staged at Shinnecock in 2018. And having watched Brooks live in person, he's so impressive to watch, and I think you can watch him on the TV for golf fans in general. Golf is a more exciting watch when he's in the mix, but he is carrying a little bit of an injury. And as we've seen for Tiger back in 95, you want to make sure things at least don't cross a certain pain threshold, or you're not simply going to be getting your hands on the trophy. The old saying of beware the injured golfer can ring true sometimes, but again, they're human beings out there at the end of the day. They need to be able to hold on to this thing. And in terms of applying force onto the grip, I watched a small bit of Brooks' press conference this week, and he said most of the pain is gone. It seems to be a wrist or hand injury that he's carrying coming into this week. And he did say most of the pain is gone, which is a positive thing for sure, of course. But he did say also that he's struggling to keep a hold of a couple of his fingers onto the club coming through the shot. And on the subject of grip pressure, I think it's an interesting one to talk about from a coaching perspective, because there's an analogy that gets given to a lot of amateurs that makes them quite poor with their long game, in that they're told they should be trying to grip the club with a grip pressure akin to holding a wounded bird in their hands. So they're being nice and gentle, taking care of it. But let's say even just picking Brooks Koepka as an example, if you watch him in slow motion coming through a shot, you can see almost the veins are jumping out of his forearms. So it doesn't look like he's holding it too light when he's playing his best golf. And I was listening to a podcast not that long ago, and it was Seán Foley on the Me and My Golf podcast, and he was talking about his time with Tiger. And on the subject of grip pressure, he asked Tiger on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being as light as possible, 10 being absolutely maxing out how tight you can hold this thing. He asked him, where on that scale of 1 to 10 would you say you are with holding a golf club? And Tiger asked if he could pick the number 11. So it is important to be able to apply a bit of force onto the grip. So hopefully Brooks is in a position where he's able to do so as the week goes on. I think Brooks, yeah, as I said, golf is a more exciting watch when you see Brooks in the mix. I walked a few holes with his coach, P. Cowan, at the Irish Open. And again, just watching Brooks, even when he's not quite at his A game, super impressive to watch. In terms of some more talking points this week, you've got Adam Scott making what's going to be his 100th consecutive major start this week. And I think he's safe to say every golf coach's favourite golf swing. He's such a neutral reference model. If you're going to pull up anyone in a lesson to show as an example of, not necessarily to swing like them, because that's going to be impossible, but if you're looking to take some snippets from what he does well in his technique and try and give that into an amateur golfer standard here in the lesson tee, he's a great person to use as an example. And I think when you look at how pure his technique is, it's no surprise to see that he has the longevity that he has in his career. And interestingly, he has gotten faster as the years have gone on, which doesn't tend to be the case usually. He must be watching a little bit of what Padraig Harrington has managed to do with his own golf game, but going to be exciting as well with that storyline to keep an eye on Adam Scott this week. In terms of my prediction for who I think is going to get across the line this week, it's probably the main reason why you clicked on this video. I'm going to go with controversial one. I'm going to go Patrick Reed. So these predictions sometimes don't age well, but we're going to see how Patrick Reed gets on. I think he's got a great chance when you look at the test that Shinnecock Hills is. It demands a lot of creativity from your short game. There's a lot of runoffs. When you watch the golf course on the TV, it does remind you of a lot of the links courses that you see in Ireland or the UK. And I think having seen Patrick Reed live in person as well on the course and practicing around the chipping green, the statement that Billy Foster came out with there not too long ago makes a lot of sense. So Billy, most people would be familiar with, one of the most famous caddies in the game, caddied for Seve, and he said that he gave Patrick Reed pretty much the ultimate compliment you could give any golfer around the greens, and he said that he's the best short game artist that he's seen since watching Seve. So this golf course is going to question your short game. It's also going to question the flat stick. You need to be on forward with the putter. You could say that about any golf events. It's usually the best putter of the group of best ball strikers that week that tends to lift the trophy, but I think Patrick Reed is going to be someone well worth keeping an eye on. Rory McIlroy, I think, is coming in with a very well-rounded golf game coming into this week. He was a little bit erratic. We're saying a little bit is putting it lightly. He was quite erratic with the driver, even when he won the Masters this year and at the PGA. But I think hopefully he's going to be a little bit more accurate. From the people that I know that are attending the events and have been there over the last couple of days for the practice rounds, and the feedback I'm getting is that they have widened the fairways quite a bit compared to the last time it was at Shinnecock. So even if he's not 100% on with the driver accuracy wise, it could be a setup that favours Rory. And I think the setup changes that they're making this week, I've seen on the TV they are syringing the greens as well, so just trying to get a little bit of water in there, make sure the greens don't get too dry and quick. There is a little bit of rain today, Thursday, but as the week goes on, there's not a whole ton of rain. Happy days for the spectators in attendance, but there is quite a bit of wind forecast, which is only going to serve to dry out the greens and get them going a bit quicker. And what the USGA, I'm sure, won't want a repeat of is what we've seen back in 2018 when there was the images of Phil Mickelson running after a golf ball that he'd hit way too hard in the putting green. He might say that he didn't hit it too hard, actually. Since we're talking about the greens potentially getting out of control. And anyway, if you didn't see it, the ball was gone quite a bit past the hole, runs after it, hits it while it's still moving to avoid it rolling off the green, maybe into a bunker, and happily accepted being penalised for it. So there is, when you're talking about a US Open layout, there is the standard that we expect that the USGA consistently provide, in that the US Open should be the toughest test in all of golf. But there is a thin line between making the setup challenging enough that it allows the cream to rise to the top, and also maybe making it a little bit too difficult, and shots that aren't necessarily all that bad, and maybe even good shots, are getting punished. So going to be interesting to see how the course plays out over the course of the week as the wind continues to pick up and the greens get maybe a little bit more dried out. Interesting to see, does it cross that line this year? So I did mention at the start of the video that if you hung around until the end, you would be rewarded with an opportunity that you can take advantage of. So if you've been inspired by the build up to the third major of the year and are willing to put in the work to take your own golf game to that next level of performance, you can do so with the help of myself as your coach, no matter where you are in the world. If you're new to the channel, you're very welcome, first and foremost, but if you've been here a while watching the content that I've been putting out, you'll be well familiar with the fact that I mentioned Skillest in every video. And Skillest is the platform that allows me to connect with golfers all across the world via remote coaching, and it's extremely powerful. It essentially gives you pretty much the experience that a lot of the tour players that are teeing it up at the US Open this week would have with their own golf coach, in that your golf coach, me in this case, would be in your pocket. Anytime you have a question, take out the phone. There's communication channels on Skillest that you can ping through texts and ask anytime you need clarity around maybe if you're doing a drill correctly or whatever the case may be. You're never going to be waiting, let's say, for another 3 or 4 weeks before we meet up in person, because it's all remote. Some of the progress that I've seen from students has been absolutely phenomenal. And if you click onto my page, you'll see a load of different testimonials. And if you're skeptical about whether online is for you or not, you can also go onto my profile. If you follow me on the Skillest app, you can receive an introductory offer of a free swing analysis. If you find that it is for you and want to take action, make sure you do so before the final put drops on Sunday of the US Open this week, because if you enter this promo code here, special offer for the US Open, you can receive 20% off the first month on any of my online monthly programs. So there's a few different ones that you can choose from and see which best suits your needs. And again, if you want to do the free swing analysis initially, I'm happy to then guide you based on what your goals are and which one will be most appropriate for you. So hope you've enjoyed today's video. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you're not already, and make sure that you don't miss out on any future content coming your way, of which there's plenty more in store very shortly.